Welcome to week 3, everybody. So you may have wondered in such a short time span that we have, 7 weeks, why I waited until week 3 to get that first major writing assignment for you to be submitted. And the reason for that is I wanted to give you time to read and engage with the material to figure out which essay or which article that you want to work with for the rest of the term before you got into any in-depth writing. I also wanted to give you some time to get to know one another and get familiar with the course before you went in for a really deep dive. So I waited until week 3, and hopefully it's not been a mistake. And so this has given you a couple of weeks to get familiar with the material, get your thoughts together. And if you're the type of student who likes to get a head start on things, hopefully some of you have already started to organize your thoughts into some writing. So let me open up our Canvas page here and share with you the week 3 overview. So we'll go into the overview page here. I still have the readings from weeks 1 and 2. If you still need to access them, most of them are PDF files that you can download. There is one that links to a website, but it's not behind a paywall. Remember, I will never ever force you to pay for an article. If you have trouble accessing something and for some reason it's behind a paywall and I'm not aware of that, please bring that to my attention. I'll make sure to get you the article that you need. There's no reason for you as a student to pay for articles for your classes. So we have those readings from week 1 and week 2. If you still need access to them, they're linked here for you. Hopefully you've downloaded them to your computers, but you know, really depends on what type of student you are. I also have a piece here from Writing Spaces, and this has to do with both reflective writing and the revision process. And the reason I linked this here is because I actually have you writing a writer's memo, and I'll explain this in a little bit once I get to the assignment page. But I think this article is helpful in making students understand why teachers and instructors assign reflective writing. It's a good habit to get into, to reflect upon your writing, where your weaknesses lie, where your strengths lie, what you want to improve, and that kind of thing. We call this the metacognitive process. We're thinking about thinking and we're thinking about writing. And it's an important aspect of the writing process itself. Giles also reflects a bit on revision. And if you are a student who writes a draft and then wants to go on and revise and improve your writing, it will be good to read about the revision process. So this, I highly recommend it. This is for the journal assignment. So you're watching this overview video. The next thing is a lecture on MLA citation. I'll talk about that in a minute. There's also a page on organizing your essay if you're having trouble organizing your thoughts, as well as a page on revision strategies, and that includes a lecture as well. Of course, read the assigned reading above for the journal assignment, and then there's a discussion board. And I'll talk about that in a moment too. The initial post for the discussion board, should you choose to do it, is July 6th. And that is a Wednesday, I believe, yes. And then if you do a peer review for your group, that peer review will be due on Friday the 8th. Then on Saturday, you have your writer's memo due. Everybody will be writing the rhetorical analysis paper, and everybody will be doing the writer's memo. So that's actually done as a journal assignment, and I'll show you the page for that. And then we have the rhetorical analysis paper. So let's move through this unit. You will see here that there is a lecture on MLA in-text citation. This lecture is about 20 minutes long, but it's something I feel that you will need. If you are fresh from high school, you may be already familiar with MLA in-text citation, and you won't need to sit through the whole lecture, or you may be able to fast forward through parts. This is based on a presentation from the Purdue OWL, the Purdue Online Writing Lab. I don't know why that escaped me for a moment. So it's good material. It's up to date with the most recent changes that MLA has gone through. So the reason I posted this here is we're going to be asking you, and it's not incredibly important in this paper, it's not a huge thing, but for the rest of the papers, you will be using support from the text in order to incorporate with your writing and make things make sense. I'm not explaining this very well. You are going to use citations from the essay or the article that you've read, as well as any other outside source material. You're going to quote from them or paraphrase from them, and it's important to know how to do that properly. That's what I wanted to say. So in addition to this, I have a little bit more information regarding MLA in-text citation. There is an art to incorporating the words and ideas of others into your own writing, so it takes a little getting used to, but with more practice, the easier it gets. The main idea is whether you're paraphrasing, summarizing, or quoting directly, you need to give credit where credit is due. Otherwise, you're guilty of plagiarism. So you've gone through the whole plagiarism module. You should be familiar with why you need to give credit, right? Because you don't want to be guilty of plagiarism. But there are certain ways that you can do this. You don't just drop a quote, or you don't just paraphrase and run. You need to provide, excuse me, you need to provide some context for your readers. And so the way you do that is to use a signal phrase or to use a parenthetical reference. So there are some little templates here that provide a little bit of an example for you. And also the quoted and paraphrased information needs to be followed by a parenthetical reference, or what we call an in-text citation, and it looks a certain way. This is explained a little bit more in depth in the lecture if you need to get up to snuff on that. And then there are just some things to keep in mind on how to do it correctly as per MLA format guidelines. And then since you will be incorporating information from at least the article that you are discussing, you will also need to have what we call a works cited page. And the works cited page is a separate page that comes after your essay. So you start a new page and it's titled works cited, and then you put the citations there. So if you look, oh, did I provide you with, no, I don't think I did. I will actually provide citations, correct citations for each of the articles. I will put that up on a page just following this one, so that you know what it looks like and you can just copy and paste it. And then once we get into the synthesis essay and the research essay, we will then really learn how to do it correctly and make sure that you're doing things the way that MLA is suggesting that you do it. So that's the stuff on MLA in-text citation and works cited. The next page here is organizing your essay. I'm a big believer in outlining, but I will not force students or assign them to do an outline. We all have different ways of organizing our thoughts when it comes to writing, and I don't want to force any one system on a student when it doesn't work for them. It works well for me because that's just how my brain likes to do things. And some of you will be right there with me, and others of you will be like, no, I can't do it that way. So I do have two suggestions if it's something that you think might be helpful for you. One is outlining, and it's an example here on how to outline. It helps to organize the different sections of your paper and get your ideas in order. So outlining is one strategy. There is another strategy that was introduced to me by a student when I was teaching at Cincinnati State, and this is by using a table or a chart to organize your information. And the way this student did it was they had their paragraph, then they had the information that would be contained in that paragraph, and then any quotations or evidence. And they start with the introduction paragraph, find an interesting hook, and then they include their thesis statement. And of course, there's no need for quotation or evidence in your introductory paragraph. That's something that you use in your body paragraphs. And then the table would go first body paragraph, second body paragraph, so on and so forth, however many body paragraphs you want to use, and then what you would have, the information that you want to present in each paragraph, along with any quotations or any evidence to help support what you are writing. And then lastly, the conclusion, of course, that's where we restate the thesis, and we don't need any quotation or evidence in the conclusion. So however you decide to organize the ideas, the key is to find something that works for you, right? I don't want to impose a system, but the more that you're able to organize your writing, the better and more logically your ideas will flow. And that will be a much better thing because you'll be better understood by your audience. When things are chaotic and disorganized, it's really difficult for your audience to understand your line of thinking. So you really want to do things logically and methodically. There we go. Next is revision strategies. So again, I am not requiring you to write a draft. However, if you write a draft and I give you feedback or you get feedback from a peer, here are some strategies of how you can edit, proofread, and revise your paper. So this lecture, again, this is a little bit of a recycled lecture. It is just under 14 minutes long. It is divided into different chapters, so you can go to the chapter that is the most relevant for you if you need a little bit of a refresher on these things, or if this is new to you, this is a good lecture to take a look at. I also have at the bottom of the page what is actually, it would be a handout. If we were in person, I'd probably give you a handout with these revision strategies on it. One is called Worms, what I really mean to say, and this can be a helpful revision strategy when you are struggling with a sentence or a passage that just is clumsy or awkward. It's just not working and you don't know how to fix it. So you can read through this. The other one is called Says and Does, and this helps on a paragraph level. And if you maybe need to reorder some of your paragraphs, it's a good idea to go through and think about what the paragraph says, as well as how it functions in the essay at large. I also provide a revision example from my own writing, from an assignment I did several years ago in graduate school, and then a couple of other revision strategies. One is called reverse outlining, which is similar to outlining that I briefly talked about on the previous page, but instead it is going after you've written your draft, you reconstruct or you do a reverse outline. So you construct an outline from that which you have already written if you haven't done an outline before. And that can sometimes help you see if things are flowing logically and if they need to be, if certain things need to be moved around. And then the last one we call Marie Kondo, and this is from the Write or Die Tribe website. And I think this one is kind of cool. It's especially good for students who tend to write a lot more than they need to, and they go well beyond the required page count or word count. And if you're not familiar with Marie Kondo, she's a Japanese organizing expert, and her whole idea is when you're choosing what to keep and what to throw away, you look at each object and you say, does this spark joy? If it does not, you don't keep it. So you do the same thing with your writing. You go through your draft and choose a sentence in each paragraph that doesn't spark joy, and you can strike through the sentence. Then you go and you reread it, and if that paragraph works without that sentence in it, then you probably don't need to keep that sentence. And as I said, this is really helpful if you've written a draft that's longer than the minimum required word count. So I thought that one was pretty helpful. There's also a revision and editing checklist. I'm pretty sure this link should work for you. If it does not, please let me know and I will fix it so that you have access to that document. It's just a document, it's a checklist of all the different little nitty-gritty things that you should be thinking about before you submit your final revision. So that is the revision strategies page. The next page is the discussion board, number 3. So we have 20 people in this class, and I've divided you up into peer groups of 4. So we have 5 groups total, four students in each group. Should you choose to take part in this peer review workshop, you will upload your draft by Wednesday, your work in progress, or WIP. You'll upload it to the discussion board within your group so that all of your group mates or your peers will be able to see your assignment. So the way you do that is you open up, you'll just reply, open up, and attach your file so that everybody in your group has access to your files. So the thing is, you're going to start a new thread and attach your work in progress, right, for each group member to review. And then each group member should provide feedback for 3 peers in their group by posting their responses in each student's thread. It doesn't have to be long or in depth, but you always want to have constructive criticism. So if you're struggling with getting started or have a certain area of concern in your writing, you might want to ask advice or feedback from your peers. It can be kind of a daunting thing. You may be a little foreign or uncomfortable to you at first, but I really encourage you to share your writing. If we can establish a sense of community and openness in these 7 weeks that we're together, when you share your writing, it can be a very freeing learning experience for everybody involved. Once you get over that initial, like, oh my goodness, my classmates are going to think I'm stupid or something like that, we're all in the same boat, right? I was the same way when I first started sharing my writing in graduate school. I hated it at first, but then it was like, wow, it was good because it was like, I started to hear some really positive things from my peers, as well as things that I could work on, and it really helped me to grow as a writer. So before you comment on your peers' work in progress, please read this essay, How to Write Meaningful Peer Response Praise by Rhonda Peter. And that's from the Writing Spaces website as well. This is a really great article that helps walk you through the process of doing a peer review. But here are some key pointers that I share with you from my own days as a student in writing workshop. Always, always, always share positive feedback first. The studies have shown that people are less likely to hear positive comments if it comes at the end, if they follow the negative ones. So it's always a good idea to start with all the positives first. Remember that as a peer, you're not pointing out you're not grading, right? You're just reading what the person has written. You're not going to point out every little grammatical, spelling, or punctuation error. That's for me to do as an instructor. Your job as peers is simply just to get through the reading and say, okay, this is what's working and this is what not. If, however, the writing is mechanically really difficult for you to read, meaning that the mechanics are just making it really difficult for you to follow the train of thought, it's fine to simply state that and say, you know, I'm having a difficult time going through this because the mechanics really need some work. However, this is what I think is really cool about your piece, or what I really like about your piece, that kind of thing. It's also okay to offer suggestions for revision. Remember that revision is different than copy editing. So try to give at least one concrete suggestion for how your peers can improve their writing. If your peer has any questions that they address with their submissions, try to answer those questions that the writer addresses. And of course, there are some unhelpful responses, so try to avoid them. And those include things like, this draft is perfect, you don't need to change anything. Or, I like it, it's really great, just fix the grammar. Or, I don't like this because it's about Twitter and I really love Twitter, you know, whatever. Or, this is just okay. Those are not constructive. They're kind of just very subjective things. They're not constructive. You want to be constructive and you want to be respectful. So always ask yourself before you write something, how would I feel if I received a review like this one, right? Always put yourself in the other writer's shoes, right? You don't want to be disrespectful and you don't want to be hurtful. We want to build one another up, and that's the purpose of sharing our writing, is to build one another up and to grow as writers. So 2 due dates. The first one is Wednesday, July 6th, if you upload your work in progress. And then the second is to try to get those reviews done by July 8th. Remember, they don't have to be super duper in depth. It requires a little extra reading, but it shouldn't take too long to get through 3 to 4 pages per student. So that is the peer review workshop. We will be doing this with each paper, so I really do encourage you to take part in it. I know that some of you are working full-time jobs and it might be difficult for you to get involved in that, and I understand that. But let's try to have at least a couple of people in each group submitting their work and discussing things so that we can build the sense of community and grow as writers. Okay? So that's peer review. And then we have journal number 2, which is the writer's memo. And this is for the rhetorical analysis. So again, I want you to read Sandra Giles's article that's linked in the overview page, the reflective writing and revision process. What were you thinking? So you understand the goal for the assignment. Writer's memo is for you to reflect upon your writing. It's also a way for you to communicate with me what you think is working and what you think needs improvement. So I have a list of questions for you that will help writing the memo, but you don't need to follow the question and answer format. You could compose a letter to an intended reader, which would be me, or approach your memo as a movie review, or even give yourself a grade and justify why you think you deserve such a grade with examples from your writing. It should be a minimum of 1 page. Use paragraphs so that you indicate each new thought and argument. Remember, you're reflecting on the rhetorical analysis paper. So the idea here is, what is the thesis, claim, or purpose of your essay? Who is your audience and why? What did you do well? What could you improve? Which part of the essay was easiest to write? Which was the one that was most difficult? Is there a sentence or a paragraph that you think is most effective and why? Or What sentence do you find the least effective and why? Did you write the paper all at once or did it come together in pieces? And what would you like the reader, that is me, to look for? What have you learned through the process of writing the paper, and how have your feelings about that topic that you're writing about changed through writing? And that's due July 9th. If for some reason you're still working on your paper and you know, you don't have all those things that you've thought about beforehand, it can be due on July 10th. But I just set it for July 9th for those people who have already worked ahead and have thought about their paper. I know some of you might be waiting until the very last minute to get to work on your paper because we have the weekend and you may have time off to do it. So I'm flexible on the due date. It should be no later than the 10th, though, if you can help it. So that is, I think, everything for this week. There is a rubric here, so you have some idea of what I'm looking for. And a lot of these things tie into, you'll see here down on the bottom, it actually ties into some of the student learning outcomes for the course. So here I have an outcome of reflection, that you articulate what you know about reading, research, and writing processes, and how that can apply to various, apply that knowledge to various contexts. So by doing this journal reflection, you are fulfilling this criteria for the course. So the last thing I have here, I don't know how I can forget that, is the rhetorical analysis paper. I have recorded a video that explains the assignment. It explains rhetorical analysis. And it's, I think, about 15 minutes long. Let me see. Yeah, 15.5 minutes long. So not super long, but hopefully long enough that you understand the assignment. So I highly recommend watching the video. I'm not going to go through all of this because I actually go through the assignment in the video. Just that it should be a minimum of 1,000 words, which is roughly 3 to 4 MLA formatted pages. That means it's 12-point font, double-spaced, 1-inch margins. Again, point out the link. If you don't know about MLA format, please go to the Purdue OWL link to learn more about it. The final revision, the final paper in its final stage, will be due on Sunday, July 10th, and it should be in Microsoft Word doc, docx, or PDF format. And then you can see here in the rubric the various things I will be assessing: your thesis, evidence, interpretation, or analysis, how well it's organized, and how well you have knowledge of conventions. So. And then lastly, here we have the student learning outcome of analysis, that you will analyze rhetorical situations by examining audience, purpose, and context. And again, these are letter grades. You don't get points, but you will have a letter grade at the end. Satisfactory completion of the assignment, C or above, fulfills the first learning outcome for the course. So that is week 3 in a somewhat large nutshell. If you have any questions about any of the assignments, or if you need to adjust a due date because of vacations or work or whatever is going on in your life, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via email. As I said, I am more than happy to be flexible, but I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. So if you keep having to push things off to a different date because of, you're just having trouble managing your time, that can be an issue in this 7-week course. It's really important to manage your time effectively and to stay on top of things, but I do know that life gets in the way, right? A lot of you are working full-time jobs. You have families, you have other obligations, and it can be difficult squeezing classes in, but hopefully for this summer class, this may be the only class that you're taking. I know Some of you are CCP students and you're in high school, so you don't have the outside distraction of your high school classes and can focus on your college class and get it out of the way. So yeah, time management is a really huge thing for this 7-week session. I can't say it enough. And it's really difficult for students who are usually in the regular semesters, you know, either the fall or the spring semesters. Summer semester is a little bit different because not everybody is taking a full load of classes. So you should have some more time to devote to your studies. But again, you know, with work and life and family and vacations and stuff like that, I understand. So just saying all of that is, I am flexible and I'm understanding, but you do need to do the work and get, you know, and reach out to me and let me know what's going on. So that's that. Have a fantastic week. Hang in there and keep working hard. Bye-bye, everyone.